And I'm going to start out with a quick slideshow. So Amy, do I go ahead and start that myself, or is that something that you do?
You can share your slides either in WebEx or you can share them on your desktop.
Perfect. Are you guys able to see that?
Yes, I can.
Great. All right, so today I'll be presenting with James Delmonico. He's one of our lead engineers, our senior support manager. And basically today we're just going to be kind of basing this webinar towards a general overview of SEP and like Amy said, talking about some challenges that folks face when they're trying to back up heterogeneous environments. So those heterogeneous environments could consist of different operating systems. They could be different applications. It could be a mix of physical versus virtual technology, or a combination of all of those things. So kind of to start out, that's usually one of the main questions we get when someone asks us what makes you guys different than all the other backup solutions that are out there. And I think first and foremost, we've kind of become recognized as a solution that can help companies that do have very heterogeneous environments that are using multiple operating systems, a lot of different applications, multiple databases, stuff like that, really consolidate down to one solution to help standardize their full enterprise environment. A lot of times we see folks using, 5, 6, 7 different solutions to meet their needs. Sometimes a solution for Linux, sometimes a different one for Windows, typically a niche product for virtual technology. And because we support all those platforms, we can easily, go in, take over an entire backup environment, and just offer one single management console and one point of contact for managing the entire backups for the enterprise. The second main thing that I think differentiates us a little bit from the competition is our performance. So we use multi-streaming technology. So we're able to back up an unlimited number of data streams to disk and up to 64 streams per tape drive. So if we're backing up to a tape library and we have multiple tape drives, it's 64 streams per drive, and that scales up. I think one of the third most important things that we offer is extremely reliable solution. I think anybody who's been involved with backups for a long period of time or has been in the industry for quite a while and has used other different backup products, you probably had one point in your career where you've gone to do a restore and there's data that's corrupted, or there's a file that's empty, or a file that's missing. And it's probably more common than most people would expect. So with SEP, that simply just doesn't happen. If you get a confirmation that a backup task was completed successfully, you know that your data is going to be there 100% of the time, really no matter what. And that all pretty much stems from our software being developed in Germany originally. And one of the German laws states that if we tell another company we're going to back up their data, we become 100% financially responsible for that data. So puts a pretty big burden on us and a pretty big responsibility on us, especially legal responsibility, to make sure that all of that data is retrievable, that it's secure, and that users can easily access that. So from the beginning of the solution, from the ground up, that was built in as a cornerstone of the solution. And then fourth on here, I put cost, and it's basically just because I do think it is relevant with the market, the way it's been over the past couple of years, kind of roller coaster, and also just because I think folks are starting to expect backups as more of a function, that they rely on from a day-to-day basis, not necessarily something that they need to go out and pay a ton of money for. And they're, with more competition, I think it's driven down the cost of backups overall. However, they're still, some can argue that they're still pretty high. So we do come in at about 40% of industry average from a cost standpoint. And so I do think that, does give us a competitive advantage as well. So as far as product integration, some of the things that we support, starting on the left-hand side, as far as operating systems and, different platforms go, we can run, the main backup server, the main program can run on Windows, Linux, or Unix. And then we have clients or agents for pretty much, every current operating system out there. Application level, with full support for Exchange, SharePoint, GroupWise, Lotus Notes, and quite a few others. As far as the databases go, full support for Oracle, SQL, SAP, MySQL, DB2, Postgres, etc. And on the virtual level, we do VMware, Hyper-V, and Citrix as the main ones. And then we also offer bare metal recovery for Windows, Windows workstations, and for Linux. So everything we do is native communication. So we communicate directly through the APIs. With Microsoft, it's VSS. With Oracle, it's RMAN, et cetera. So, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we go through. So getting back to having one point of contact for the entire enterprise. The way that our GUI is structured, it's designed to be very easy to use, something that you can pull up at any point of contact that you have with your organization. So the GUIs are stackable and unlimited. You can put them on, any server or workstation or desktop or laptop that you choose. And as long as those are authenticated and given permission, to access the system, you can manage your entire environment from any endpoint you choose. You can also go in and customize layouts. So if you have different folks managing different parts of your infrastructure, you can have, a DBA pull up just the backup tasks that pertain to his job. So just the databases, for example. You can have somebody who's on the virtual side, just pull up the virtual machine backups right away. So they don't have to kind of filter through all the different backup tasks that are going on. They can just see what's relevant to them, save them some time, and make their life easier. So on this slide, we have basically a very simplified version of a typical network environment that we would come in contact with and help to support. And we can just kind of talk through this a little bit to highlight some of the things that we do and how we'd approach backing up an environment like this. So on the left-hand side, we have a main SEP backup server, and we have some local attached disk to that backup server. Right in the middle, to the right of that backup server, we have a storage area network. That could be all disk-based. It could be disk with tape attached. Really any combination of that. We could have, other network disks attached to the SAN as well. And then across the bottom right under the SAN, you can see there's 4 servers there. There's a file server, a database server, email server, and a directory server. So you can see that the email server and the directory server are connected via the local area network. So if we were going to back up those servers, we'd back those up across the LAN to the main backup server and then send that data wherever we choose. So we could send it to the local disk, we could send it over to the SAN, we could write it to tape, or any combination of that. And then with the file server and the database server, those guys are connected directly to the SAN. So in that case, when we have a server that's directly connected to the SAN over fiber or iSCSI, we're able to do what we call LAN-free backup, which is just basically pushing the data from those servers directly to the SAN. So they don't go across the LAN. They don't go through the main backup server. We call it a LAN-free backup, and it just keeps, extra traffic off of the LAN, and it also, obviously helps us increase the performance as well. On the right side of the SAN, you can see there's a virtual pool. For a node cluster, so we can also push those VMs directly to the SAN, or we could back those up across the local area network, if a user chooses to do that. As we go to the right, we could push data through multiple firewalls up to the cloud, or if, depending on the use case or how someone wanted to configure an environment, they could also install SEP in the cloud and pull data from an organization up to the cloud. So a couple different ways to set that up. And then on the bottom, we have a remote site. This could be one remote site, in the building next door, or it could be thousands of remote sites around the globe. To us, it really doesn't make a difference. We would put what we call a remote device server at that remote location, whether it be one or thousands, and it's basically the same as a media agent, and then we can back up all of that data to locally attached disk or tape or whatever the media may be, and then either replicate or migrate that data back to the main data center or whatever backup rotation is desired. So if we wanted to send data from point A to point B and data from point B to point C, et cetera, we could just kind of stagger the data from one location to the next, or do that in combination with sending a main copy back to a main data center, whatever we need to do to make sure that there's multiple copies of that data so it's secure. So back to the multi-streaming. I think traditional backup solutions are geared a little more linear when it comes to scheduling tasks and performing backups. So a lot of the solutions that we see, if we have these 9 servers over here on the left-hand side, they'll back up, maybe the Windows server first. When that's finished, it'll pick up the Linux server, move on to the Mac server if that's something that's even supported. And so our approach is a little bit different. So we set up different task groups, and we don't necessarily set them up per server, but we'll include a lot of different servers in each task group. So we could set up one task group for backing up files, and another task group for disaster recovery. We could have a third task group for databases, another one for sys volumes, and so we can kind of, break it down however we'd like to. But we'll have multiple task groups, and all those task groups kick off at the same time. So each one of these servers, not only will they all start backing up at the same time, but they could each have, anywhere from 1 to 5 or 6 or 7 streams coming from each server at the same time. So even though we're only backing up these 9 servers, we could have 50 backup streams running at the same time. And so that helps us really maximize whatever bandwidth we have to work with. So our throughput is going to be, as close to theoretical maximum as you can get. So on a 1 gig connection, we typically expect to see about 120 to 125 gigs an hour, with the theoretical maximum being 125 an hour. Most competitors we typically see running at about 35 to 65 gigs an hour, just as kind of a reference point. And then on a 10 gig connection, we expect to see about 1.2 terabytes an hour. So we can also scale that up depending what kind of bandwidth we have to work with, but those are the most common 2 situations that we see. So how does all of this factor into real-world scenarios? How do our customers leverage this? What kind of results do they get? So here's just a couple examples of having one single management interface to manage an entire enterprise. Also, how the performance factors in and the reliability and stuff like that. So Vodafone, they're the partner company of Verizon. They have deployed to 3,500 sites around Europe right now, and And so they're managing all of those different locations from one main data center. So again, very easy to manage a lot of different locations from one central console. U.S. National Archiving and Record Administration, we took over their email system about 2.5 years ago, I believe. And when we first, when we first talked to those guys, they were doing full backups, and they were taking about 6.5 days to complete if they completed successfully. So they had one window, I believe, from about 12 p.m. on Friday to about 8 p.m. on Friday when they weren't doing backups. The rest of the time was, the rest of the week was a full backup cycle. So we were able to come in, enable the multi-streaming, and that backup window went from 6.5 days down to 13 hours. And upon some more modifications, that time further decreased to 11 hours. So they went from doing, one full backup a week to full backups every night. Port of San Diego, they went from 100 hours, over 100 hours with a pretty inconsistent backup record. Had about a 65% completion rate, I believe, of backup, completing without any errors. And we got their backups down to doing full backups in under 4 hours. And their Oracle backups in particular went from, it was just under 5 hours, I think it was like 4 hours and 50 minutes, down to 42 minutes. And then Public Works of Canada, another example of managing 42 locations around the country from one central console. Georgetown University, just kind of coming back to the reliability here, they were spending a lot of time, pretty much every single weekend. Somebody would have to stay and manage the backups and be called in at all hours of the weekend to try and fix jobs and get them running again, get them started again. They were just having a lot of failures. And they said after running SEP for a couple of months, the time that they spent managing their backups had decreased by 90%. And we actually got a call from the director there, and he said that within the first 5, it was like 4 or 5 or 6 months running SEP, that he said the amount of money that they had saved in overtime had actually already paid for the software. So I think that was pretty good news for them. So a couple other examples here that we'll just kind of skip through. If anybody has any questions on these, please feel free to ask. So we also offer archiving. The archiving that we have is basically a file lock technology. So we're able to lock down a archive data store, and it basically just restricts anyone from going in and deleting any data or altering any data or modifying anything. And so we can set different archive pools for different retention periods and stuff like that. We offer deduplication as well. It's a global deduplication solution. So it's not just a per server or per location solution. And then put generic drivers on here, and basically what we mean by that is we're able to leverage the operating system drivers, so we can back up to any type of media that's recognized by an operating system. So you don't have to call us and ask us if we support XYZ product. If it's something that is recognized by the operating system, which is pretty much everything, you can be confident that it's going to be supported. You can plug it in, set it up as a media pool or a tape library, and go ahead and back up to it. As far as support for bare metal, we support Linux, Windows, and Windows workstations. It basically gives you a bootable image file. So if one of your servers were to go down, you could replace it with similar or dissimilar hardware and then spin up a wizard, and it just says, hey, do you want the same partition sizes? Do you want different partition sizes? Do you want to install the drivers for dissimilar hardware? And you just go through, click a couple options, and then brings the server back up exactly the way it was before it went down. So for Netapp environments, we do have a direct connect for Netapp, and it does a couple of things that are pretty cool. Netapp traditionally does backups through NDMP, which does have some advantages, although I think those advantages are outweighed by just how slow that protocol is. So our direct connect enables you to back up about 6 times faster than NDMP. And the other cool thing that we can do is when we back it up using SEP, we're able to restore any data that came from a Netapp environment. We can restore that to any type of media that we want. So you don't have to restore that backup job to the exact same Netapp device with the same serial number. You can put it on any type of SAN, any type of disk. You can write it to tape. You can do whatever you want with it. So we've had some customers in the past that's kind of saved their tail on a number of occasions. So we also have full support for Exchange. Everything through Exchange is VSS aware, also DAG. We can do single email restores. We can do single user restores. We can do full Exchange instant restores, and all the latest versions of Exchange are supported. So this is we're actually going to be coming out with a new version for Exchange here shortly, and it's very intuitive. It's just a drag and drop. You can actually do searches that search through all the attachments for Exchange, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty advanced. For SQL, again, VSS aware, we can do point-in-time restores. We can cross-restore between tables, and you can the log backups can be done with or without truncate options. So for Oracle, there's a couple things that we do that are a little bit unique to Oracle. So most backup solutions, when they back up Oracle, they'll make a call to RMAN and they'll say, dump a copy of your database and then we'll back it up. And so RMAN dumps a copy of their database, they write it to a landing zone, and then the backup software goes into that landing zone and backs up a copy of all the data that was dumped there. So what SEP does differently is we present RMAN with what looks to RMAN like a tape library or a tape loader, and we say, RMAN, give us a copy of your data directly, and then we take that data and we write it directly from the database to the backup media itself. So 2 things that does right off the bat. 1, it automatically reduces the backup window by 50% because we're only writing the data 1 time instead of twice. And then second, in the case of really large databases, it doesn't require you to have double the amount of disk space that you need for an Oracle database. So we have one customer that's a fairly large bank that has a 2 petabyte Oracle database. So in their case, just eliminating the extra 2 petabyte of landing zone for them was obviously an enormous cost savings. As far as SAP goes, we've been a longtime partner with SAP. We were just certified for SEP HANA over this past summer, and of course support all of the legacy SAP applications on DB, Sun, MSSQL, etc. We also offer full support for Novell environments. So that includes direct communication with all of Novell's TSAs. So we automatically have very granular backup and restore functionality for Novell. So we can back up eDirectory, NSS volumes, iFolder, also can back up GroupWise, and for GroupWise we can restore single emails, single users, and single post offices, and just kind of what happens behind the scene, because the way GroupWise does compress their GroupWise, behind the scene, even if you do a single file restore, what happens is it does go ahead and restore the entire post office and then pulls out your single email that you requested. So one of the things we do to kind of, develop a workaround for that to make it so it's just really easy to use in day-to-day production is to do a full backup overnight of the GroupWise environment and then just schedule an automatic restore. So that, and we just restore that to a landing zone so that when you come in the morning, you have a freshly restored GroupWise instance sitting there. So if anyone needs anything throughout the day, you can just drag and drop those emails out and you don't have to wait for an actual restore. So that's just typically how we approach that. We also support clustering, whether it be on NetWare or OES. All of that's fully supported as well. We have full support for Mac environments, so it can be servers, desktops, or laptops. Anything running Mac OS is fully supported. So on to virtual technology. For all of our virtual technology for VMware, Citrix, and Hyper-V, everything's agentless, so we don't have to install clients or agents on the VMs themselves. For VMware, we have change block tracking, so we're able to do incremental backups throughout the week. So if we do a full backup on the weekend, we're able to do incremental backups throughout the week or whatever schedule you choose. We also have a new feature, which is a instant restore. So if we back up a VM to a shared volume, we're able to separate out the VMDK file, and if that VM goes down, then instead of the way you traditionally restore that VM by going into the restore wizard and restoring the VM either in overwrite mode or to a different pool, we can just point VMware to the VMDK file, the backup copy, and it'll spin up instantly a copy of that VM. And that way it just eliminates any downtime, and then VMware will automatically migrate that VM back into the VMware pool as well. So, it's a drastic reduction of downtime and really gives, the instant restore functionality that a lot of people, require on a day-to-day basis. So a typical way that we back up a VM, we create an LVM snapshot, we mount it, we back it up, unmount it, and delete it. So that's a very clean process. It doesn't leave, anything in the memory or on the system. Here is a slide that just kind of talks about the scalability of VMware environments in the enterprise. So we can have, multiple different VMware pools backing up to SAN environments, doing LAN-free backups. We can back up from, one LUN to another, which is, very high performant. This is just a quick screenshot of what this looks like, and we're actually going to be jumping into a live demo here in a couple seconds, so we'll just show you what this looks like in the console on the live demo as well. But basically here we just have a VMware with 2 hosts that you can see there, and then with one of the hosts, it's expanded down so you can see the VMs that are running on it. So as soon as we authenticate to VMware, it just auto-populates all of the hosts, all of the guests, and then you can just, check which ones you want to put in which backup schedule. So this is what it looks like to restore a VM. This is just our restore wizard, and you can restore to, same location, different location. You can have the VMs up and running when you restore it. You can have them shut down. Quite a few options. And as I mentioned, with the GroupWise, we can also back up VMs and then schedule automatic restores. So you can schedule automatic restores for any backup task that you have. So we can back up, different virtual machines and then automatically restore those to another cluster so that you have a warm standby. We have quite a few folks that like that functionality and use that on a regular basis. Our newest version, 4.4, some of the new features, like I mentioned, has the VMware VM Instant Recovery. We also have single file restore for NSS volumes on VMware. So, you no longer have to put a client or an agent on a OES server to be able to restore those NSS volumes or, single files out of those. Everything is agentless now. We also have full support for GroupWise 2014, global deduplication, destination side, as well as replication, full support for SAP HANA, and single port network requirements. So that is it for the slide portion today. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and submit those in the Q&A boxes, and we'll get those answered for you as we transition over here to James, who's going to go ahead and show you a live demo.
Okay, we're looking at a fresh installation here of Sesame Server on Windows 12. We've also got an installation here of /11, and I've just put the hypervisors on the Windows 12 copy.
Hey James, did you share your screen? I cannot share your screen yet, or I cannot see your screen yet.
It says that I'm not presenter.
Yeah, just go ahead up into the menu box at the top, and under share, just go ahead and share your desktop. Perfect.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so we've got a fresh install here on Windows 12. This is the source browser interface that allows us to see what services are running. We use the system recovery for the Windows recovery set, system cabs, and also the registry. Included in that with all the agent licenses is Active Directory backup as well. And with SESM, eDirectory and Active Directory are included with the agents. We can support backing up Hyper-V, also SQL. If we happen to have multiple instances of SQL going or SQL Express, one license picks up all of those different instances. We're able to use checkbox at the top level here in the source all to back up all of the different databases and all the different instances, or we can expand and do one specific database or both. The default option is to handle all of the log file truncation and everything naturally with successive full incremental backups. So you don't need to schedule tasks in SQL Manager or anything like that. We support the interface through vSphere as well as direct to the host through the ESX API. So you're able to leverage a vSphere server to see everything in the environment if you want. When we do an all backup of file systems, open files are free and included with all SESM instances. So that's something that you don't have to worry about. We also pick up the hidden UEFI boot partition here, if that exists. So a big benefit to using the all method is that you get a VSS snapshot of the entire system. So that'd be just like what you'd get from a hypervisor. It also means that if a user adds a drive letter and doesn't tell you, you're automatically picking that up in the backup. If you're in a situation where you have maybe a database service installed on C and the actual data on D, we always want to snap both of them together. If you have different data, then you have the ability to make different tasks and get two streams of data going from the different volumes. I went ahead and connected VMware test machine here. Everything 4.1 and later is supported with VMware. And so you can just select which virtual machine you want to back up. We break down which machines are running on which host here, but in the end, we're targeting them as data center name, VM name. So either way, you select the same thing. If high availability is moving those around, we'll be able to find those within the cluster and do the backup directly. With these backups, there are a couple different technologies we support. We're able to do the full provision size backups, and that would be what the other vendors are doing. The exception with us is that we check to make sure that the VSS snapshot completed before we actually run the snapshot, and we warn the user if that didn't happen. I think commonly the majority of the other vendors just run the snapshot dirty, and you might have a corrupt file system in there or something like that. One nice thing about backing up those big OVF images is, in our case, we separate the different files for each VM disk, and we're able to actually mount those and then restore single files to an agent or another machine in the system. That makes a huge difference for being able to quickly get backups of machines and have access to single files. All of that goes through the same VSS check that the regular system backups go through, so you can be assured that you've got all of your data there. We also support Vmware Cbt Algorithm, and that gives us just the used blocks. So space-wise, it's you use much less space because you're not backing up the empty space on the disks or the provision space. We're also able to do block level incrementals and differentials based on that, so we can really keep the size down. All the same things are same API connection is supported to Citrix. It's roughly the same thing. You just have a different icon. If you end up with a different hypervisor, whether it's Citrix or Hyper-V, same thing goes. You can just select your VM and go ahead and do the backups. We're able to back up VMs that are running, VMs that are stopped. We're also able to do scheduled restoration of those VMs to another hypervisor cluster with isolated storage. We have the option to even start them, so we could restore a VM in overwrite mode and set it to start and then just walk away and your VM will come back. We have the ability with all of our different backup tasks to export them as a file. So in the case of a Microsoft SQL backup, I could dump an SQL file anywhere. With a Citrix backup, I could dump the XVA file. Exchange would be a BKF. And with VMware, we would dump the data store folder for the VM. So it'd be the same as shutting down the virtual machine, making a copy of the data store folder for the VM on your workstation. Same result there. So all of the features and capabilities are the same with SESM. This is actually the same code base, same build for Windows, Linux, and Unix. We also use the same build for all customers, and that helps keep development working at a quick rate because we've only got one build out there. With our different models of the server version, the only difference is target concurrency, how many backup jobs or streams we can run at the same time. Physically, we can write 64 streams to a tape drive, however many tape drives you have times 64. With disk-based backups, we can write unlimited amounts of data or streams. We're also able to make data go from clients directly to media storage and bypass the actual backup server, and that's an option that you can use. Here's the same type of fresh installation, same version. This is just a SLES 11 machine. I've configured this with the eDirectory admin password here. And so to access Novell services, I'll bring up the source browser here. With Novell, we can see, and we fully support all these sources through their API, GroupWise all the way up through GroupWise 14, that's this installation. We, by default, are making a separate task for the domain and the post office. If there are more post offices, those would be listed here as well. Again, there's open file support for NSS volumes. We also do full trustee rights. If this were a clustered resource and one of the nodes went down during the backup, if that node was hosting the volume, then the backup would carry over and continue automatically on the other cluster member. So all of the normal Novell cluster failover stuff works with the backup system. We also notably don't use any special drivers anywhere in our system. We don't use any custom configuration files. So you can have a default fully updated system and know that that's going to work without other hurdles and challenges with specialty drivers. We list anything that the OS supports as supported. So every SAN, RAID controller, anything like that is supported. With eDirectory, we offer full DR capable directory level backup. And that means that we're making a snapshot of the actual data as well as the schema. So if we have a system that's been upgraded from a legacy netware, or we're doing the backup off of legacy netware, we're able to get any type of customizations in the schema also, so you know that the data will be restorable when restore time comes. iFolder is also supported if that's in use, and really anything that there's SMS support or TSA support for, we support. We support GUI listing of MySQL, both on Windows and Linux, and also Postgres. There's support for all of the other specialty databases as well, namely SAP-MAX, DB2, and Oracle. This is a Bare System Recovery is our image level bare metal product, and this is a very neat thing for Linux. The result of this backup task is actually a bootable ISO image. And so all we need to make sure is that the 32 or 64 bits matches with the source system, with the new system. And we are able to go grab any other hardware, boot it up with this CD. The CD knows how to make all the partitions or RAID arrays or whatever else drives. It formats them with the same UUIDs, and then it mounts them. And then we can go right to restoring our latest full and the incrementals up to when we target. I think the mean time to restore is much, much lower, and it's a much faster restore with this product. Number one, we're not backing up or restoring any actual files with our image level task. So it's 50 megabytes. We're also not backing up any empty space. The zeros are a big image. I think commonly the other vendors are backing up a giant image of the boot device or the C drive, and so then they run the entire thing back to the restore machine, and then they go and overwrite the whole thing again with the full file backup, and so we've actually just eliminated all those extra steps. This also is able to change storage drivers and things. So if you have a RAID array or RAID controller fail, you don't have to go dig up that same device off of eBay. You can go ahead and restore it directly to a regular disk or a different brand of RAID array. And this actually is able to figure out things like mapping the disks to different disks. You can even restore things into a virtual machine and do P2V migration that way. A big benefit to using SESM is that we do the multi-streaming. And just for example, when we do a fresh installation or a proof of concept installation, we make 6 groups. And those groups are disaster recovery. We put things like the image level backups, the BSR backups, eDirectory and Active Directory, Windows registries. And then we have system volumes and data volumes, mail and groupware solutions. Then we have databases and virtual machines. And the function of that is that during the first time installation, we're actually making the scheduling groups, and then that's the end of thinking about the schedule. So I'm just going to make a virtual machine group to show you how that would work. But going to the schedules, let's say we want daily incrementals and weekly fulls to our test pool. So now I've got our virtual machine group. And then when I went in and added my tasks, I would just put them into a scheduling group. And at that point, I could walk away and know that the backup would continue, without any other intervention. So here we're backing up Hyper-V, Citrix, and VMware, all in a group together. We're able to control the start order here. And so that's, commonly how, we set up the system. And the nice thing about that is that it leverages the parallelism, because the number of streams or target concurrency you have in your license, you're able to do that many backups at the same time. The rest remain queued, and so the network and the I/O of the storage media will always be saturated. And so that's how we really get the best performance over the network. There's some other admin benefits to the system. We do calendar sheets and have event viewers to show us everything that's happening and what the plan is for the day. In job states backup here, we have all of our log records. We keep this metadata you see here, task type, time the task started, target and performance, inside our database instance, and this is a very small database instance. You don't need to babysit SQL for this product. We do it all internally. Then these main logs actually have the output of the agent on the client side. And this is where we would look for something in support, or if we had a warning or something to see, if a file disappeared during the backup or something like that. And we keep these on file system. And that's how we really keep the database instance small. We also gzip these files so they don't fill up the disk. The system itself has backend logging here in Daylog, and this shows everything from starting the service, checking the license, ejecting a tape. And the nice thing about this is if I have any question about what the system is doing, I can see all of the commands that the backend is running. And all of the commands are self-documenting, and so we can run those and know exactly what's happening. And that really saves me from having to call support for every little thing, because I can actually see exactly what the system is doing. Additionally, the GUI itself is just a SQL client, and it's supported anywhere Java runs. So you can have the GUI going on Mac or something like that if you wish, or VPN machine or workstation. Commonly, I use this as a report builder. Maybe I want to know what drive number I'm using. Then I can just cut and paste these SQL queries into the email notification to do custom reporting based on what I've set here. That really makes life easy for getting information out of the system. With email notification, by default, we do 3 types. Notify is the affirmative interface, just tells us everything went well, there were no errors. If maybe a Windows update rebooted a machine during the backup, you'll get an alarm immediately. And then you'll get a summary of what worked and what didn't in the morning. These are open scripts. They're ANSI SH on Linux, and they're PowerShell on Windows, so we can modify these or enhance them to connect to any other system. We also send SNMP management traps. This disaster recovery email sends us a trimmed down SQL attachment of the configuration we've done here in the GUI. And that lends to really quick DR, because we can take a trial version and just import that and get back to where we were. So that's kind of built-in DR for the backup server itself. That's really the basis of using the SESM system and what we look for. At this point, I'd like to open it up for questions or details about how this would work in your environment.
Again, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and please enter those in the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your panel for WebEx. Okay, so we have a question that says, will this work for a small single tape drive shop? And the answer is yes. You can use this for backing up to 1 tape, or you can use this backing up to thousands of tapes. Really doesn't make a difference. And then we're also able to, we can back up to disk first and then migrate that data off to tape. We can back up, to tape. We could send that data to disk afterwards if you wanted to. We could back up to disk, and then to tape or to cloud. So there's quite a few options there. And another question, is that cost effective? Yes, I would consider it is. There's no extra licensing or anything if you're just backing up to a single tape. That's just included in the base product. So yeah, I think compared to everything out there, I think it's extremely cost competitive. All right, any other questions? If you guys have any other questions, go ahead and put those in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one last time just to put contact information up there for anyone that would like to contact us. We're more than happy to get on with you guys. If you'd like to use a 30-day trial version of SEP and back up some different servers or virtual technology databases, whatever the case may be, or if you just have any questions about the solutions in general, please feel free to reach out to us. All of our contact information is on the screen here. And, we're also happy to get on with you, help you with any testing that you'd like to do, and answer any questions you have. So if there aren't any other questions, I will go ahead and turn it back over to Amy to wrap things up. And again, thanks everyone for joining us. And Amy, thank you for having us on as a guest again. It's always a pleasure.
All right, thank you, Lanai, and thank you, James. Lanai, if you actually want to share your screen again, then we can see your contact information. So if anyone does have additional questions.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
All right, perfect. So I'll leave this up for just a couple minutes so that if you want to get in contact with Lanai or James at SEP, then you can go ahead and take note of their contact information. So thank you again to Lanai and James, and also to Vaslav and Q for your earlier presentations. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day.